What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. AZ Triumphster here. So today is Fiberglass Day. So I went to this place right here called Sticky Stuff. That guy right there on the top, Sean, was awesome. Absolutely awesome. Hooked me up with what I needed, and these guys are so... The pricing was perfect. It's just real fair pricing. And he refers to themselves as a teaching shop. So I'm about to be taught. I'm going to make a fiberglass seat pan for the XS500 here. I'm not going to do a mold or anything like that. I'm just going to tape this up, cover it with plastic, and cut a piece out to shape and get going. I already put these little pieces in here to leave some room for some wiring, since my battery and fuses and everything is going to go in the tail section. But I'm just going to do a step-by-step, kind of stop in and show you guys how it goes, and hopefully it turns out well. So instead of using like cardboard or anything to lay across it, just to help keep it from drooping between the frame rails and into the tail itself, I just used masking tape, taped off the parts. I'm leaving the battery in because since this project is still an ongoing thing, I'm not sure. I mean, I ultimately want the battery to end up in the tail and one of those small anti-gravity batteries, but if not, then I do need room for one under the seat. So that's there, and that should be fine. So I'm going to lay some plastic over this, and then we'll check back in. Here we are with the plastic on it. Just contoured it as best I can. So I was told that if you put permanent marker down, it bleeds into the fiberglass itself. So I put down a line and important parts, so that way we would have kind of a guideline to cut to when it's said and done. So now what's next is to cut the fiberglass into a shape that is a bit larger than what I'm working with here, what I want, and then go from there. I gotta tell you, just to plug Sticky Stuff again, it's Sunday, they're closed, but I called and said, hey, how much of this stuff should I, how much of the resin should I mix with the activator? I told him what kind of size area I was working with, and I mean, he answered and told me, he's like, 12 ounces is what I would usually do, let's round up and do 14. Look at this. Boop. Pretty much done with exactly what he quoted, and we've done 2 layers. And I think it's going great, and truth of that Sharpie marker bled right through like we thought it would, so that's fantastic. I called Micah from Dean Speed Customs and said, hey man, when you did that Honda Shadow seat, how many layers did you do? He said 2. So we have done 2, and he also advised to get out as many air bubbles between the layers as possible, so that is what we were working on right now. So this is going extremely well, in my opinion, although I've been known to speak too soon, so we'll wait till it dries and then we'll check back. We've got this little table that's on the back side of the business card for Sticky Stuff, but you guys can pause the video here and screenshot it if you need to. I'll try to hold steady. Wow, I'm not doing very good at that. Okay, so what you basically do is you figure out how many or how much of the resin you're going to use here, quart, gallon, whatever, and then you figure out what temperature range you are in. The recommendation was to pick a time where you knew it wasn't going to fluctuate over or under, so we're working right in this range right here. And I am basically, I'm not using a quart. Quart's a lot more than I was going to use. So I figured out how many ounces I'm going to use. And then cc's per ounce, I multiplied the cc's by the number of ounces, and that got how much of the activator I added. Stirred it up and got to work. So yeah, pretty handy having this on the back of the business card. So it's already dried, pretty much. It's a little tacky. As you can tell, I rolled the bike out and I already peeled it off, and it's already got its shape and form and everything. But I wanted to put it back on so as it dries more, it keeps its form. But so I just put this plastic under it. I will say this, since the tank and tail are a store-bought rattle can paint job with a lacquer gloss finish, the resin with the activator in it gets pretty hot, like chemically hot. So it actually melted the lacquer thinner clear coat just a little. Not horrible. I was actually going to repaint the tank and tail anyways, so this is just gives me an excuse to do it sooner. So no biggie. But just something to be aware of. You should cover everything really well with multiple layers when you're doing this. So I'll check back with you guys when it's fully dried. Alright guys, so I'm at Dean Speed Customs. Here's the excess. Now I already cut off a bunch of the extra with the bandsaw here. But what I'm doing is basically I laid this tape where I want it, where I want the line, so I can see it through it, and then I just took a Sharpie and marked it, as you can see here. I haven't done across this point yet, but I did the tail already. So I'm going to go around to the other side and do that as well, and then I'll get to trimming. I may use a combination of the bandsaw and maybe a sanding filing method to get it down to the shape I want, but we should be able to get there. Alright, so here it is. I just got home last night, parked the bike. Before I take off to work, I wanted to show y'all the finished product. Well, quite far from finished as far as upholstery goes, but as far as shaping it, seam to seam, all the way around. So once there's some upholstery on it, and some padding underneath, it'll fit great and look great. Okay, so a lot's happened since the last section that I shot with the seat pan. I told you guys that the resin got real chemically hot and melted the clear coat on my last paint scheme, so I put together this paint scheme, and I did so in less than a week because there was a vintage show I wanted to have this bike at. Not necessarily to win anything, but just to have fun and have it out there. And if you guys are subscribed to the channel, then you would have seen the footage from that vintage show, and also the finished seat. But what I wanted to do was get you the insight as to how we arrived at that. The last section talked about the seat pan being done and going to the upholsterer. Well, I did bring it to the upholsterer. Again, it was Rex Simon, and he certainly complimented the shape and construction of it. By the way, there it is. Simon Designs, Rex Simon. He complimented the shape and design and construction of it, but he advised to do another layer. And I'm glad we did, because it thickened it up and made it a lot sturdier instead of brittle. And I went through and I trimmed that. I brought it to him, and he had to do a little bit of work on the underside of the seat pan to get it to fit the frame a little bit better than it had with the upholstery on it, etc. But ultimately, the finished product is amazing. So ditching that, so I don't have to sit on that anymore. And I'm going to grab the seat pan and set it on, and that way you guys can get a look at what we're working with here. And there you have it. Now, I'll take the seat off and show you something here in a second, but I absolutely love how he cut this in at a hard angle, because this bike is angular. It doesn't have a lot of curvature to it in the tank or in the tail, so this is great. It complements it well. So one thing that Micah did from Dean Speed Customs, the seat pan was getting some flex in the upright section of the tail here. It was pulling forward. The upholstery was pulling it forward. So Micah took a piece of steel, bent it, and riveted it to the seat pan to pull the tail, the upright section back to keep it against the pod. Additionally, he put in a threaded piece, which right now is covered by the, you can see it a little bit there. Oh, wait, there you go. That little bump, I mean, you can see the outline of the piece of the metal, but that bump is actually threaded. We're just going to trim the felt away from it. And under here, and there's my aluminum battery tray. We're going to just create an arm that swivels back and forth, and you can tighten up. That's going to essentially secure the rear part of the seat, but it's also going to pull this all down snug, because the front doesn't pull off. Like, if you try to lift on it, it doesn't pull up. It actually lifts from the rear. So if we can secure the rear, the whole thing will sit on there perfectly. But enough of that. I don't want to take away from how amazing this seat turned out. It's a stiff foam. Absolutely not going for comfort here, guys. So it's all about fashion, and quite fashionable. This turned out fantastic. Again, huge shout out to the Fiberglass guys, Sticky Stuff. Another huge shout out to Rex Simon with Simon Designs. And lastly, Dean Speed Customs, Micah, letting me use the shop to trim the seat down and putting some reinforcement on this as well. Guys, this has been a long process, but it has been worth it. Turns out the fiberglass is pretty easy to work with, and the itchy part only happens when you're sanding it, so cover those arms. Go ahead and subscribe, guys. Keep up to date on everything I'm doing with bikes, anything I can get my hands on. I heard there's some Kawasaki demos coming up, so we'll see what's up with that. Like the video, and as always, stay safe out there.